Social Security beneficiaries may have just received some surprising news that could translate into a significantly higher raise than anyone was anticipating. New economic data that was just released is showing inflation numbers coming in way above expectations, and this has major implications for your monthly benefit check. If these trends continue, we could be looking at one of the larger cost of living adjustments in recent years, and I want to break down exactly what this data means for you and why it matters so much for your Social Security income. Before we dive into the details, if you depend on Social Security and want to stay informed about every development that could affect your monthly benefits, take a moment right now to subscribe to this channel. We cover the latest Social Security news and updates every single week in plain, simple terms so you never miss anything important. With so much happening right now that could impact your benefits, you do not want to be left in the dark. Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you are always one step ahead. Now let me explain exactly what this new data shows and why it could mean more money in your pocket. Every month, we receive important economic data that helps us understand where inflation is heading. Not all of this data directly determines your Social Security raise, but certain key measurements give us strong signals about what to expect. Just recently, the Bureau of Labor Statistics released new data on the Producer Price Index, commonly known as PPI. This is an inflationary measure that tracks prices at the wholesale level. It does not measure what you and I pay at our local stores. Instead, it measures what businesses pay when they purchase goods at the wholesale level before those products hit retail shelves. Understanding the PPI is important because it serves as an early warning system for retail prices. When businesses pay more at the wholesale level, they almost always pass those higher costs along to consumers. That means higher prices at the grocery store, the pharmacy, the gas station, and everywhere else you spend money. The PPI essentially tells us what is coming down the pipeline in terms of retail inflation. The numbers that were just released came in significantly higher than economists and analysts were expecting. On a month-over-month basis, wholesale prices increased by 0.7%. Now, that might not sound like much when you say it quickly, but the expectation was only 0.3%. The actual number more than doubled what experts were forecasting. That is a substantial miss, and it signals that inflationary pressures are building much faster than anticipated. On a year-over-year basis, wholesale prices are up 3.4%. But here is where things get really interesting and perhaps a bit concerning. If we take that 0.7% monthly increase and annualize it, meaning if we assume that pace continues for a full year, we would be looking at an 8.4% annual inflation rate at the wholesale level. That is a significant number. That is the kind of number that gets economists worried, and that gets Social Security beneficiaries paying close attention. Now here is something critical that many people might be overlooking. The data that was just released reflects February's numbers. February. Think about what has happened since February. We are now in the middle of March, and a tremendous amount has changed in just the past few weeks. Energy prices have spiked dramatically. Oil prices have surged by 40 to 50% or more in a very short period of time. And when energy prices rise sharply, it creates a ripple effect throughout the entire economy. Energy is embedded in the cost of nearly everything. It costs more to transport goods. It costs more to manufacture products. It costs more to heat and cool buildings. All of those increased costs get passed along to consumers in the form of higher prices on just about everything we buy. What this means is that when we receive the next round of economic data in about a month, the numbers are almost certainly going to be even higher than what we just saw. The February data was already surprising. The March data, which will be released in the middle of April, is likely going to show an even more dramatic spike because it will capture the impact of these rising energy costs. We are going to see the Consumer Price Index data, which measures retail inflation and what consumers actually pay, come out in the middle of April. Just a few days later, we will get the next Producer Price Index report on wholesale inflation. Both of these numbers are expected to show significant increases reflecting what happened in March. This is not speculation. This is simply following the logical chain of cause and effect from wholesale prices to energy costs to retail prices. So how does all of this translate to your Social Security benefits? That is the question that matters most to anyone depending on Social Security for their monthly income. The connection between inflation data and your Social Security raise comes through something called the Cost of Living Adjustment, or COLA. Every year, The Social Security Administration calculates the COLA based on inflation data from a specific measure called the CPIW, which stands for Consumer Price Index for urban wage earners and clerical workers. This is a specific inflation measurement buried within the broader Consumer Price Index numbers. The Social Security Administration looks at the CPIW data from the third quarter of the year, meaning July, August, and September. They compare the average CPIW from that third quarter to the average from the third quarter of the previous year. The percentage difference between those two averages determines how much of a raise Social Security beneficiaries will receive the following January. This is why the inflation data we are seeing now is so important. We are currently in March. The third quarter measurement period of July, August, and September is not that far away. It might feel like a long time, but in economic terms, we are already seeing the warning signs of what those summer months might look like. If the current pace of inflation continues, or if it accelerates further as many economists expect due to rising energy costs and other factors, the CPIW readings during that crucial July through September window could be significantly elevated. That would directly translate into a larger cost of living adjustment for 2027. Based on the data we are seeing now, some projections are suggesting that we could see inflation numbers in the range of 5 to 6% by the middle of the year. That might have seemed like an aggressive forecast just a few weeks ago, but given that we are currently running at an annualized pace of 8.4% based on the month-over-month PPI numbers, those 5 to 6% projections might actually be conservative. We could potentially be looking at even higher inflation readings as we move through the spring and into the summer. For Social Security beneficiaries, this could mean a substantially larger raise than what we received this year. The 2025 cost of living adjustment was 2.8%. If inflation continues on its current trajectory, the 2027 COLA could potentially be double that amount or even higher. Of course, economic conditions can change, and nothing is guaranteed. But the early warning signs from this wholesale price data are pointing clearly in one direction, and that direction is higher inflation and therefore higher cost of living adjustments. It is important to understand why this matters so much for people living on Social Security. When prices rise faster than your income, your purchasing power decreases. You can buy less with the same amount of money. For retirees and disabled individuals who depend on Social Security as their primary source of income, this erosion of purchasing power can create real financial hardship. The cost of living adjustment exists precisely to address this problem. It is designed to help beneficiaries maintain their standard of living even as prices increase. When inflation is high and the COLA accurately reflects that inflation, beneficiaries receive larger increases that help them keep pace with rising costs. However, there is also a flip side to consider. Higher inflation means higher prices right now, today, before you receive any increased benefits. The COLA adjustment always comes after the fact. You experience the higher prices throughout the year, and then you receive the adjustment the following January. This means that even though a higher COLA is good news in terms of your future benefit amount, you still have to navigate the higher prices in the meantime. For many Social Security beneficiaries living on tight budgets, this timing gap can create genuine financial stress. The Producer Price Index data we just discussed is particularly useful because it gives us advance warning of what is coming. Wholesale prices rise first, then those increases flow through to retail prices, and eventually those retail price increases show up in the Consumer Price Index data that determines your COLA. By watching the PPI, we can anticipate what is likely coming in the months ahead and prepare accordingly. Looking at the broader economic picture, there are several factors that could continue pushing inflation higher in the coming months. Energy prices are a major driver, and the recent spike in oil prices could persist or even intensify, depending on global conditions. Supply chain issues, while improved from the pandemic era, still exist in certain sectors and can contribute to price pressures. Labor costs have been rising as wages increase across many industries, and those higher labor costs often get passed along to consumers. All of these factors suggest that the inflationary environment is likely to remain elevated at least through the summer months, which is exactly the period that matters most for determining the 2027 COLA. For Social Security beneficiaries trying to plan ahead, this information provides valuable context. While we cannot know exactly what the COLA will be until it is officially announced in October 2026, the data trends we are seeing now give us a reasonable basis for expectations. If you are budgeting for the future, it may be wise to anticipate continued price increases over the next several months, while also recognizing that a meaningful benefit increase could be coming in January 2027. It is also worth remembering that inflation affects different people in different ways. The official inflation measures are averages that reflect the spending patterns of broad population groups. But individual households have their own unique spending patterns. Some people spend more on healthcare, which has its own inflation dynamics. Others spend more on housing or transportation or food. Your personal experience of inflation may be different from what the official numbers suggest. For many seniors and disabled individuals, healthcare costs and housing costs represent a larger share of their budgets than the official inflation measures assume. This is one reason why some advocates have pushed for using the CPI, which is an experimental index specifically designed to measure inflation as experienced by elderly consumers. The CPI typically shows higher inflation than the CPIW because it places more weight on categories like healthcare that tend to rise faster. However, the CPI is not currently used to calculate Social Security COLAs, so your adjustment is based on the CPIW regardless of your personal spending patterns. As we move forward through the spring and into the summer, there will be multiple additional data releases that help clarify the inflation picture. Each month brings new CPI and PPI reports, and each report provides another piece of the puzzle. The March data coming in April will be particularly important because it will capture the impact of the recent energy price spike. From there, we will continue to receive monthly updates leading up to the crucial July through September measurement period. The bottom line from this latest data release is clear. Inflation is running hotter than expected at the wholesale level, and there is good reason to believe this will translate into higher retail inflation in the coming months. For Social Security beneficiaries, this has both short-term challenges and potential longer-term benefits. In the short term, higher prices mean your current benefits do not stretch as far. But looking ahead, higher inflation during the measurement period could mean a significantly larger cost of living adjustment for 2027. Staying informed about these economic developments is one of the most valuable things you can do as a Social Security beneficiary. When you understand how the system works and what factors influence your benefits, you can make better decisions about your finances and avoid being caught off guard by changes. The economic data we receive each month provides important signals about where things are heading, and paying attention to those signals can help you plan more effectively. If you found this information helpful and want to stay updated on every development that could affect your Social Security benefits, make sure you are subscribed to this channel. We break down the latest news and data in plain language so you always know what is happening with your benefits. New information is coming out constantly, and we are here to help you make sense of it all. Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss an important update. I will continue to monitor all of this data closely and bring you dedicated updates as new information becomes available. Until next time, stay informed and take care of yourself.